Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, free spirits and truth seekers. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Witty Vitor podcast. We are diving headfirst into the showdown that got us the road on edge. Why the US finally stepped up and entered the war with Iran. Forget the fake news spin. This is straight talk on American foreign policy, the political brawls in DC, and what real Americans think about the crashing threats to the Western civilization. Joining to me are Kimann Schultz and in a few minutes, Vera Guyash. Both are dialing in from the USA. We'll break down the strategic plays, diplomatic chess games, and military muscle that's putting Iran in its place. From Trump's bold moves to why Biden's crew would have wimped out, we are unpacking it, our sharp takes. We will fire some sharp analysis. And if you want to be part of the conversation, make sure to subscribe to get more unfiltered truth. If you want to be part of the crew in a wider sense, membership plans are available. And you can also award us a super chat to let us know how much you appreciate our work. You can also share with your squad, and you can help us making this go viral. So with that, we will get into the topic. Kimann, good to see you here. It has been a while. How are you doing on your end?
I'm doing super. Just want to point out it is 7:30 in the evening for you. It is 1:30 in the afternoon where I am. And I love this aspect of technology that we can have these conversations. It's sunny and a beautiful pre-spring kind of day. And I, as predominantly an art supporter, free speech supporter in that context, a lover of peace, get to participate in a conversation like this, which is going to help bring in some perspectives of the everyday average American who is witnessing and observing the cultural differences and the unity that we're seeking. And it is an interesting mix. These are interesting times. These are largely upside down as well, and certainly busy times, especially because we hear about it 24/7.
Yeah, that's a huge difference if you compare to those days where you had to switch on the TV, say at 7, 8, or 9 in the evening. Now we are just bombarded. So, talking of the past, okay, if you were to compare Trump's leadership and how he decided to turn the tide, and you put that in a comparison table versus the years of Obama's and Biden's appeasement nonsense, how would you unpack that to the viewers?
In American vernacular, we call that kicking the can down the road and throwing money at a problem, which has obviously not gone away. And the evidence is just supported by, for instance, the horrific attacks that occurred on October 7, 2023, and going forward, and the issues that exist, and the regimes with the nuclear question that just never went away. And one of the things that I see, because I am old enough to remember listening to Walter Cronkite, a venerable broadcaster, giving the daily death toll and injured toll during the Vietnam War. And it was simply stating numbers. It was so prevalent that, for instance, the attention that is being given to the sons and daughters that are serving now who are injured or lost, it is talked about, it is honored in real time, whereas back then they were stating just the numbers. And how different is that from back then? I just think that nuclear question is also parallel in the way that we simply guide our families and parent in this day and age. I remember when parents were the monarchy in a family, what they said went. Children had to obey. It was also about keeping children safe. Now it is suggesting to the child, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I'm going to count to 3. If you don't do this, I'm going to count to 3 again. Come on, let's do this. And then all of a sudden, children rule the roost. And you take that tiny paradigm of family and you expand it all the way out to leaderships that are problematic and troublesome and we're primitive, where violence evidently is the answer. And we have had so much in political discourse and theater where it's talking. Come on, guys, you got to stop. We can't do this. And we have had presidents throw money at problems Democrat tax and spend is a known policy. It doesn't work. Instead, what happens is that money is taken and it is used for coercive purposes. And here we are on the cusp, and I do believe we were on the cusp. And it's not new. People have always been horrible in powerful places of actually having nuclear armaments that would put us all at danger. And so this is now being actively addressed old school. We have a term called going medieval on someone. And of course, it's ironic because we are using 21st cutting edge technology to do it, but that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, and I would say there is no alternative. No, in some parts of the road, the medieval is still practical. Like I spent some time in the Middle East. I just returned a couple of weeks ago, and I could see that the relationships between people are not, let's say, as cultural based as they are here. This is not calling them primitive, just the use of force or the use of the voice is very different from what we are used to. And perhaps in some situations, we need to mimic those interactions because they can save lives. And that's what the Israelis and the Americans are doing now in Iran. And it's not just for the two of them, it's also for the West. I'd like to understand, how do you see the West or the wider West and America? Do you think we are waking up to the fact that we are on the radar of the radical Islamists, or there are still a few people living under some sort of sleep?
Yeah, America is definitely, we are a free market, we're capitalist, and that means we are a society of consumers. Consumption and information posing as news, which is in actuality entertainment to keep people occupied and consuming, and it is making a few people a whole lot of money. We are absolutely subjected to it because we're also a culture that lives with enough comfort that we have free time, and that free time permits even more consumption. I've always said one of the ironies about social media is that it's got the ability to grant people with the most time on their thumbs with some of the biggest voices of all, because it's all usage based. And so it's a vicious circle that we've created for ourselves. It is a marketplace, and perceived need is marketing 101. And so we feel we need to know 24/7. It's being given to us and it's being circulated. And of course, rage baiting, which is a term I like to use, propaganda that is designed to keep people angry and using more is very much at play. And the sad thing is the house divided has potential of not standing as well. And in my country, we're a very young country. We're just kind of getting past what I call the founders phase. If an organization starts up something, a nonprofit, a museum, a school, and you get past that founders phase. We had our founding fathers. We are still in their shadow. We're ready to move on. And I want this nation to have every opportunity to continue as it has been structured to evolve. It doesn't need a full-on breakdown, which is what has happened in some societies where, for instance, communism has taken over. And then that whole cycle has to get played up all over.
Yeah, there was just a couple of seconds of connectivity issues, but we are back. You mentioned communists. I'm thinking now of the Comrade Kamala. How different would that be if Comrade Kamala would be commanding the situation in the Middle East? Would you expect her to take action? Would it just be more about talks and diplomacy? How different would that be if Kamala would have won the elections in 2024?
Yeah, one easy thing that I can point out as a woman is that she, as a woman, when we are talking art of war, when we're talking art of the deal, however you want to put it, she would have been dealing with men who are programmed all their life to discount the presence and the power and the word of the woman. I mean, the subjugation of women in those cultures is one of the top issues. And it's one that I think women the world over cannot and should not deny as being a paramount issue. And Kamala, even if she were highly skilled and eloquent and highly a huge expert in diplomacy, which I don't think she is. I think she was vastly underqualified, and I think she was very much a pop culture phenomenon. Would, in addition to not having been qualified to handle the situation, she would have been surrounded by individuals who would have not given her time of day. I think it would have been that much harder. And that means that she would have had to then position herself maybe with an even stronger army of additional negotiators who were men. So I'm just glad that we're not dealing with her, dealing with them.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I actually can relate to what you just described myself in June when I was evacuated from Israel during the 12 days war with Iran. So we were evacuated via the Egyptian border, and the leader of the leader of the group was a Portuguese embassy staff. She was a woman, okay, and it was all good when we were in Israel. There were no issues, but just a dog is fine. But at some point when we got to Egypt, I could see that she was struggling. They were looking down on her. They were not taking consideration her words, and she was having a horrible time. I felt that we were going back, I don't know, 100 years or more, because she couldn't just have a normal conversation with the Egyptian officers, and we were there for the common good. No, it's not just us, because we wanted to be evacuated, but they had to get rid of us because there were another hundreds waiting to cross the border and to be everyone's benefit. But the fact that she was a woman, it was crucial for the conversation not going in the right direction. And I would say that, okay, we were stuck because there were hundreds of people in that border, but perhaps we stay another 20 or 30 minutes because there was massive disrespect towards that person who was doing everything she could to get us through. I still remember that it was horrible.
Those are cultural realities, and it doesn't label a person for acknowledging an unfortunate reality. Ben Shapiro kind of trademarked that facts don't have feelings kind of thing. And that's true. I mean, sometimes things just are what they are. And the cultural differences, aside from the fact that I don't think Kamala was very good talking on her feet, so to speak, would have also been at issue. There was never any evidence of her being able to do that.
No, not at all. But anyway, she's now passed, although she would like to return in 2028. But we'll get into it.
That's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. It seems like the Democrats right now are recycling a lot of their top personalities. And I find that interesting. But, politics has always been kind of a dirty business. If we want to try to superimpose virtue on top of the celebrity aspect, that's going to be an interesting project for everyone. But I'm going to say that I'm not seeing any big, fresh new faces. And in particular, the Governor Shapiro, I think it has a lot of potential. I think Fetterman, he's making a lot of sense these days. But Governor Shapiro happens to be Jewish. Right now, there are some issues in the Democrat Party with the Palestinian Jewish understanding and perspective and support. And there are at the universities, we've seen evidence of a lot of strife having to do with the Jewish ostracization. So I don't know where we are in terms of that next box checking thing that happened. What boxes can potentially get checked in our next big candidates, whether male or female?
Let's go back to the war. Like, in your understanding, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, being 10 inevitable, how inevitable was this war to take place?
There are two ways that I would want to answer that. So the one way is me as a history person and a writer and somebody who observes man and mankind. And the problem is the inevitability lies in the fact that we keep going to war. All of mankind all over the world, skirmishes and wars keep having to happen again and again and again. So from that standpoint, it's inevitable, because somehow we are just not quite that prime directive level yet where peace can prevail amongst all of us. Then as a closer technical matter, where we're talking about the nuclear war situation and wanting to keep Iran from stepping up in that capacity, that was also imminent. And I do believe that it's just the time. And the thing is, everything that Trump has been doing, even down to the political courting that he has done with the Saudis and in Dubai, and being welcomed opened arms, and the deal making and everything, that was laying the groundwork to have the coalition to take this on. So it's been at work for a while.
Yeah. I'd say it's not new, especially this year, that we saw already a couple of operations, not just in Iran, but also Mexico, Venezuela. How different you see the operation, the Epic Fury, as they call it, the Epic Fury in Iran versus what the American military did in January in Caracas?
Yeah, I love the Marvel comic level labeling of these missions. I think that's interesting. I think we're reading about the downing of a ship, reading about the takedown of a fighter, air-to-air combat. That's pretty old school. I think that, and then combined with some of the things that we heard about in the issues with Maduro and the technology that was employed, then I circle back to everything that was left in Afghanistan for all of those nations to be able to study the arms that we had back then. That means that we had to advance everything so much as to have something new and something more powerful. So this is us showing the world what we can do. And peace through strength is the term that this administration is using a lot. I think, you know what, Epic Fury, if somebody wants to make fun of the fanfare behind a term like that, well, I'm also going to say peace through strength has that meme level way of presenting itself. And it makes perfect sense. Peace through strength is what you do. Peace through strength is how you can manage a bully. Peace through strength is how a person can manage a family. It works in a whole lot of ways. And so I believe that tactic is good. And I think that this administration looks like they have the intention. Of course, they're being very open and honest that a lot of this is now going to be up to the Iranian people and the Iranian nation as a whole. And I've also read to the effect that they have many leaders in place, rows of succession, like 4 or 5 deep individuals that can get called up into the next spot as soon as the next person is eliminated. So it's not going to be an easy thing. They're going to have to keep at it a while. Now that there's been bombing situations and destruction in such as Dubai, I'm going to be really interested to see what those nations are going to do to step up militarily. Again, invoking Marvel comic fantasy, and I'm a writer, I do horror and science fiction. I'm thinking, all right, how is an UAE or Saudi special forces, how are they going to be and how are they going to do what they do? Because again, that's a completely different culture. So that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah. I just want to let know the viewers that there is a poll that I would like you guys to respond to. So the question is, how soon will we see full-on regime collapse, street parties in Tehran with non-stop YMCA dance? Okay, there are 4 options. You guys can say this week if you believe that it's a matter of days and you can already see sparks. You can be optimistic, but not so much. And you can say it's next month, so once IRGS crumbles. Or you can also opt for summer. That will be a summer party. It will be a freedom festival taking place in Tehran. Or we'll need to wait until Christmas, and it happened only in December, and we have Santa join us. So let us know in the poll. At the moment, there are two answers. One person is very optimistic, is saying it's about to start, and another one think it's a matter of a month. So let us know when we'll discuss the results with Kimann later on. I would like to understand, like in terms of diplomacy, right? There are a lot of talks between U.S. and Iran. Some took place in Europe, some in the Gulf, but apparently they didn't go anywhere good. How were you following this conversation? Did you have any faith, or you knew it was just a theater?
Well, my news consumption is probably average, and it's a combination of online and traditional news sources. I actually really like the press briefings. I think they're handled very well. I think they're in depth. I think that when Trump puts himself in front of reporters and talks for an hour or two and answers questions, and where he is challenged by opposition news sources, are also really good opportunities to kind of hear what's going on. I am enough of a skeptic to know that money will always factor into everything. I know that they are now talking about the coalition meetings that are going to come up very soon, of other countries coming together, and they're going to circle back again to the drug trade. Well, one of the things that we don't really talk about are some of the positions and the products coming out of, for instance, the poppies and the materials for the drug trade and all of that, where that's coming from. That's not being discussed a whole lot. A lot of it is very complicated. And so we are fed the sound bites that we are supposed to process. What concerns me is that we are fed sound bites that are also intended to keep us divided. And I, as a arts person and a consumer, coming from a standpoint where unification should be more at play, I'm always concerned about the absence of real information in place of people being fed that which will keep them mad and divided, and of course loyal to their parties, because that fills those coffers.
Yeah, I think most people don't have the courage to go against their own tribe. Like, they are happy to fight back their enemies, but they will never they don't have the nerves to say, "Look, I've been with you for quite some time, but I'm no longer part of this group." And it takes a lot of it takes a lot of courage to be able to sit down with someone with whom we had a great time, but we know that this time is over. And it's not just about walking away. Sometimes you need to communicate, and there are repercussions about leaving. And I think most people are not ready for it. They sometimes just turn a blind eye because it's more comfortable. It's an easy way to deal with things. And I often realize that many of the people who are quiet, or they're just nodding, it's not because they don't see things, just they are not able to confront facts, confront people who are in positions of power. And the other one, I think, is, in this day and age, there are terrible consequences for going against the narrative. And your income can be at stake. You don't have anyone to go out for a drink or dinner. So there are all sorts of social prices that not everyone is prepared to pay. And we all know that courage is not that common in humanity, because people think of courage as violence, and it's not violence. It's much more than that. It's the ability to stick to the things you believe and be able to get the hit. Okay.
And culturally speaking, we
Yes.
used to have more opportunities to be connected at different levels, whether it was a church organization or whatever. And we've become so ideologically driven that becomes the foundation for the tribe. And just as I earlier invoked sort of the weak parenting paradigms that we see now have kind of played out in the way that past presidents have said, well, stop, Timmy, stop. I'm going to, no nuclear bomb for you, but okay, I'll count to 3. But so much that happens at global levels can be analyzed in a simpler way down to the way things are done at a more local level or a more personal level. And yes, that includes having the courage to speak out, to acknowledge that differences can exist, and then to live with this, because that's what we're all trying to do anyway, each in our respective countries. And we have this now too, after having a collapsed border for Biden's term. We're all contending with that right now. And that is a bad situation, because it involves all kinds of people at all kinds of levels, and victimization, least of which are the hardworking American tax-paying, working middle-class people whose funds are it's not even just an issue of going to a person who is here illegally to take care of them per se, but no, it's funds being sent overseas to fund other causes that further the violence. These are other administrations that are doing precisely what we are trying not to represent, or what we're trying to fight against. And so that's a pretty sick cycle of funds distribution.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I was just thinking of a sentence. I don't remember. I think it was a French writer. I think it was Pascal, if I remember well. I think it was Pascal. And Pascal, maybe I'm quoting the wrong person, but it was a French writer for sure, who said, French or German, anyway, was a continental writer from, I think, the 17th century, 18th century, around that, but I cannot think now of the real name. And he said something like, all the problems, all the humanity problems starts when someone cannot, when a single man cannot stay in his own bedroom with his own thoughts. And people will say, you're talking about America. And I'm not. I'm talking about radical Islam. Because one thing is, let's say, they are happy with their own backyard, and they are doing what they think is the best for their people. And they aren't. We all know that. But perhaps it's up to the citizens to respond and overthrow the government. But that's not the case. That's not the case. We all know that radical Islam is ready to take over the road. And it's not something that I'm saying it myself. They are open about it. They publicize it. They even, in June, when Israel hit Tehran and some other cities in Iran, they even had a big sign in one of the Iranian cities saying, "Countdown to destroy Israel." So what do you expect if you are bragging about beating another country? You know that if you don't do it, if this country has the capacity and the courage to knock your door and look at you in the eye, probably won't be happy about that country's response. And people blame Israel or America to get in Iran and letting them know that their behavior is unacceptable. But I think we, Israel, America, and to some extent the West, we are just being fast this time. We are not waiting. We are not accepting the idea of regretting our inaction down the road. We are just being fast. And for once, perhaps it's something that we can praise ourselves, because we know the enemy is evil. The enemy doesn't think about their own people, let alone ourselves in the West. So we just need to be quicker than them before it's too late. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they are ancient agendas and ancient revenge motives that go back hundreds and thousands of years. These are ancient cultures, and the hardliners are traditionalist in the most true sense, beyond anything what really most Americans can even envision. One of the things that this young nation does not possess is some of the ancientness that other cultures do. And I would say our closest cousins would be the English-speaking countries, let's say England, obvious example, that goes back so much longer in time, and the perspective then is so much different. Our perspective is truly a much newer one. It is based on some old foundational paradigms, but we've built something entirely new. And the tolerance that we have, that we really really do take wonderfully for granted in terms of inclusivity that our nation has. Israel, for instance, we are inclusive nations. People can live and let live in our countries as a technical legal matter. That would effectively be wiped out if some of the hardliners had their way. And that always kind of blows my mind when the lack of support for what we are doing and the alliance between the US and Israel gets questioned. Why two of the most inclusive nations in the entire world are not viewed as having at least the strongest platform for that and to help support that. The irony abounds.
Yeah, I think it should be normal, as you just said. Like there is so much common ground. Why we shouldn't sit at the same table? I mean, I think this is basic. And if you think of Iran, like who are their friends? It's North Korea, Venezuela, and to some extent Russia and China. So if you are unable to read a nation or an entity, for that matter, just look at their mates. And their mates are not friends of democracy. Their mates are not friends of free speech. Their mates are not friends of human rights. So if they are okay to hang out with them, for sure there is something wrong with that regime. And that's not compatible with what the progressives tend to proclaim that they're trying to implement in the American and the wider society. As a matter of fact, those regimes, they are on the antipodes of the things they proclaim. But I think in the end, they are fans of tyranny.
Interesting parallel that can be drawn. I've been doing a little bit of reading on dog ownership, something really simple. So animals, pets in our life, these days people give them many other terms, fur babies and things like that, because we humans have such a tendency to humanize that which we love. The ratios of dog ownership in populations, let's say 10 per 1,000 people and such, the lowest ratios of dog ownership are parallel with the nations whose thinking is at most opposition to what it is that we're trying to uphold, whether, as the citizens where we are, the nations, what's going on. And I think that that's an interesting little parallel. It is, of course, a cultural thing. And it is still actively written about. I think it's an interesting bit of reading to dig into that, because articles, just completely contemporary articles are still being written in the Arab Muslim communities, dealing with the conundrum of dog and pet ownership, and that assimilation into, for instance, the American culture. Owning a dog is one of these big transitions that some of these Muslim families actually make. So once again, there's a really small snippet that starts to reflect something much bigger. And I think it's also caring for those who are least able to care for themselves is one of them. And that also includes the inclusivity, where we're able to care for people and treat them with the respect and actually have laws that substantiate that, which we have.
Yeah. I'm talking of animals treatment. I'll never forget the day I was walking in not exactly in the old city of Jerusalem, just a few meters away, and I saw a bunch of kids who were whipping a donkey. I think it was a donkey. It wasn't a pony or a horse. And they are not whipping the donkey for him to walk or to eat. They're whipping that donkey for fun. You can say they're just stupid kids. There are stupid kids everywhere. But the level of rage and hate that I saw in those eyes, I don't think I will ever saw in any other kids across the world. And I've been in many parts of the planet, and I think they're just being cruel. And I know kids sometimes they don't really know like what feelings are. They're just being disrespectful. But that was not the case. They were using the donkey as a toy, but I couldn't do anything because I was there by myself. But I just felt like calling an authority or see if their parents were around and let them know that would be unacceptable. But being alone, I wouldn't be in a situation that I could find a resolution, because things will go against me. But that's just terrible. And I think it's not a it's not an unusual phenomenon in that part of the world. Like the way that animals are treated, even in Southeast Asia. I hate to see like Western tourists riding camels or elephants. I think it's just cruel. I'm okay with horses, because I think horses, to a degree, they are prepared for it. I did that myself in Brazil, but I would never ever like ride a camel or an elephant. They are just a different species. They are not there for us to be on top of and go for a journey. It's a completely different thing. And I don't accept the idea that those parts of the world they lack resources, they don't have really means to make a living, so they need to use the animals. It doesn't work like that. There are other parts of the world, let's say some islands in the Pacific, where people find other ways to make money. So I think it's culture, and we need to accept that not all the cultures are the same. There are differences, and I would even add, and probably people are going to hate me, in the 21st century, some cultures are doing better than others for the road.
Yeah, as far as animals go and their uses over time, and that quick path to using them as for forms of entertainment and subjugating them to our whims and our wishes and our needs. It's such a complex history that I'm going to say that pretty quickly we can wrap into that all of mankind. Certainly as a writer of darker type fiction and being aware of crime history, criminal history, that's one of the shortest paths to some of the most extreme behaviors is how a human will treat an animal. And so I think that I think that dog ownership, and statistically speaking, is a calculable thing that we can observe. And I think that when we are seeing such as children who are already imprinted in some way to take pain and put that on an innocent creature, that these are all just clues to some of the ills and issues in societies, that where there is pain amongst the humans, and it's getting paid forward. I mean, we have that here in our country too. So it certainly is an indicator when there is a disconnect and when the wrong connections are then being made.
Yeah. I mean, there are levels and levels. I remember sitting with a couple of Muslims when I lived in Budapest. They were actually people whom I would have a drink from time to time. And they were saying that when they were younger, they would play PlayStation. They would play football or soccer, as you guys call it in the States. They were playing this PlayStation game between, I think it was Chelsea and Arsenal, which I don't have very much familiar with, but they are top teams in England. And back then, Chelsea had a Jewish player who was fairly skilled. He was not a superstar like Ronaldo or Messi. And they would say, yeah, we will never keep the Jewish guy in the first 11. We'll put him on the bench. I would take that as a joke. That would be okay. I mean, it was, and end of the day, it's their decision to have their first 11. They were just they were just mocking me. That would be okay. And that aside, we would sit, have drinks, we'll have fun. That's not a problem. But when it comes to crossing the line and intimidating you, that's a completely different story, because I was able to have conversations with these people. We had radically different opinions of the situation in the Middle East and the wider geopolitical context. But I would say that it's easy to sit down with a Muslim than it is with the radical left, because they are not really ready to be confronted or to be called out. They just don't accept dialogue. They think dialogue is a threat and it's considered an act of violence. Is it something that you come across in the States?
Yeah, my least favorite thing that happens here is there's a lot of name calling and labeling. And it's strange because it's not founded on anything that's actually accurate. I'm kind of thinking like if you're going to insult somebody, at least have your facts straight. So if you're going to call someone something, make sure that it's an accurate slur. And the thing is that there's zero accuracy in what I'm even seeing. For instance, and it's just coincidence, I'll just invoke Ben Shapiro again. He was labeled a Nazi, which is absurd. And so it's like, yeah, okay, guys, whatever. And the thing is, it dilutes it. But there are clues to that behavior where when Trump was elected, and I remember kind of analyzing that, I had an independent blogger account at Huffington Post years and years ago. And so I did an article kind of analyzing, well, what's going on with this election of Trump? And that was before I didn't vote for him. But I'm starting to wonder, what is this shift that I'm seeing? And for one thing, he did not represent some false notion of virtue. And so there was something interesting and refreshing in all of that. And oh shoot, I'm forgetting where I was going with that. Oh, the name calling. And one of the things that was contentious at the time was his casual use of profanity. He doesn't swear any more or less than anybody does. And he tosses it around a little bit when he's giving his discussions and answering a question, much in the same way we all do it. And that was an issue back then because it was something I wrote about. And the funny thing is now, especially on the left, which the Democrats are very good at organizing talking points. It's very traceable, where you will see a phrase selected and it gets repeated very quickly by all of the politicians and the pundits. It gets circulated like there's probably a group or an app that informs them all, okay, this is what we're going to use. And of course, profanity has been a big part of that. And one of the things that I also think back to the Women's March in Washington, which I'm sure was a great grand old time where fortunate women got to travel and party and hang out for days in DC. And they bitched and they bitched and they bitched and they bitched about just whatever they wanted to. And using profanity was kind of a hallmark of it. It was like a thing. And I think that it just sort of flung wide those doors. And so we see and we hear a whole lot of profanity used in recent past. There's the F Trump this and the F Trump that, which nobody was really doing it that openly as regards a sitting president. But now it is the way to do it. And in the end, I think it just circles back to obnoxious, childlike dilution of the impact. It's like, yeah, whatever, your sweary thingy just isn't so effective because it's just so pervasive. So I think that some of these behavioral shifts have been interesting to track.
Yeah, talking of tracking, I'll just go back to the poll. So people are fairly optimistic. I can see that. Most of the viewers believe that the regime will collapse in the next month, and there will be YMCA dances all over Iran. And there's one person saying it's about to start and to be still this week, but they believe it's next month. So April is the time to see YMCA dance all over Iran, based on the viewers. Kim, I would like to ask you about this whole myth that Jews control America. They say Jews control the world, so why not America? But we know that America likes to be in charge of their own affairs. So how would you defend your country as an America from the accusation that Jews are in charge of your decisions?
Yeah. So again, I'll invoke the microcosm to represent the bigger paradigm, which is to say, I have always had some of my dearest friends decades ago and today are Jewish people. And that is it coincidence? Is there a reason for it? Is there a dynamic that I love? I don't know. But the fact is that what has been a positive reality in my life reflects in a much bigger sense. And if there is a culture in the Jewish American community that supports industriousness, achievement in school, success universities, degrees, and so on, if that works its way into the bigger picture, and if that in the end is where money is controlled, well, a lot of things are just what they are. And all I can do is do my best in my little microcosm, and either a person can reject, or you can play along, or you can participate. Let's say, for instance, the Hollywood culture and who controls the voices and the paradigms there. Well, as a creative contributor myself, I am acutely aware of the fact that I'm participating in a picture that is largely created, filled with people that are of the opposition camps where I stand. And my position is even rather nuanced too. It's not hardline in anything. So I am not going to say that just because a particular demographic might hold a top spot in some area, that's necessarily a bad thing, because oftentimes things just are what they are. And the tribalism that we have, whether it is in family or friendship or whatever, if that factors out into larger business structures, that's just how this sort of thing works.
Yeah, I think the issue here is that the demographic in charge, to some degree, are the Jews. Because if it would be the Indians, to be fine. It would be the Chinese, to be okay. If it would be the Nigerians or the Italians, not a problem. It's colorful. They bring nice food to the table. It's okay. But because it's this bloody ethnicity or group or tribe that have been striving despite being on the radar, then it's unacceptable. That's the problem, because we all fancy the idea of little Italy, little Delhi, little, I don't know, Cape Town. It's so good. But if it's little Tel Aviv or little Jerusalem, then it's a problem. Then it smells bad. I think there is something on the back of people's mind when it comes to the Jewish group, that it's dark. It's dark, and I think this is not just something that sits only on the left wing. It's also quite common on the right, and more and more, I would say, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, because I see the right very much split. Even prominent figures like Tucker Carlson and kind of sounds being as anti-Semitic as Jeremy Corbyn, if not more. And my fear is that those guys are going to echo in Europe and in other parts of the world, because they are very much influential.
Mm-hmm. It's nothing new. These ironic and conflicting ways that we regard each other, it's always existed, and none of it's ever made sense. And oddly, it doesn't go away, it just resurrects itself in new forms as new technologies and new things take over. And what you mentioned earlier, the little Italies and everything, it's all consumption based, isn't it? And in the end, in the US in particular, it's leisure consumption. So we're circling back to something I said earlier, which is we are largely a consumer based culture, and we gauge so much from that. And we become victims to that ourselves.
Just looking at the poll, at the moment there are two predictions in the table, on the top of the table. One is that we have YMCA dance over Iran next week. Another one is next month. So yeah, I would not like to finish as a tie. So please let us know what you think, if it's next week, next month, or if you disagree. There are two other options: summer or Christmas, or someone just pointed out in the comments his prediction. It's not in the poll. Just let us know in the comments, because I couldn't add more than 4 options, so it's not my fault this time. It's just the way that YouTube is set up. I'm thinking of 2 major agents here that are looking at the situation in Iran with a lot of attention. One is China, another one is Russia. I know it's a bit of a crystal ball, but do you expect them to participate in some shape or form in this battle, or they will just watch it from far?
From my limited exposure to what is being shared and propagated, they definitely seem to be in wait and see mode. They definitely seem to be stepping back. I think that many of the maneuvers that this administration has made from day one was in preparation for this sort of thing, and it was setting the stage. You were referring to your poll with the YMCA being played, and amazingly, they played that for Trump when he was in Dubai, I believe, which is bizarre and funny and culturally interesting. But it just goes to show you how far that goes, where again, it's that consumption-based thing is being adjusted to accommodate what we Americans are all about, which is that's a rather humorous celebration, that song. And it's a celebration nevertheless. So that's kind of interesting. I think that Russia is weaker than it lets on. I mean, that's famously known. Its economy has always been problematic. And China, that's hard to say. That's an old problem, and part of what they have is size. It is a big land, and it's a big culture. Mankind doesn't seem to be anywhere close to a coexistent way of wanting to be. It's still all a contest, which is incredibly primitive. So I think that were those nations involved, well, that would really launch us into World War III, wouldn't it? And I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Someone is saying YMCA is very optimistic. Yeah,
optimistic and humorous.
Yes, yeah, and the most ironic thing about the YMCA in 2025 and 2026, because it's still being played, is that for those who don't know the song of the history, YMCA was the most famous or the iconic gay song, and that
Absolutely.
was played
disco
by
era.
Trump.
You bet. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
yes, and it's interesting because he has used that song so much and gets to, and they seems to be all right. So it's kind of funny because that, of course, would be wholly ignored by those who will want to find fault in absolutely everything he says and does and stands for. And that can maybe be a pretty tough position to take sometimes, because it's undeniable that some of the stuff that's being done is happening. It's part of a much bigger picture.
Yeah. And it's crazy that, let's say, if you are now seated on a bus or train or subway, and you are just enjoying yourself with your YouTube or Spotify music, but okay, you have your earbuds, but you decide to listen to a YMCA, and your phone is visible. You might have problems. Someone can call you out for listening to that music when people were enjoying that music for decades. Just because now it was used by Republicans and by Trump, you cannot like it just because you enjoy the tune or the lyrics or any other aspect of the song. Like I listen to it because I feel boosted by the vibe of the song. That's it.
Yeah.
It's nothing ideological. It's nothing Trump related, and it's just fun. It just makes you feel better and face the day with a smile. But if there is some very strict and not really able to understand the other side, you might have some Karen just pointing you out for listen that song while you are commuting, or just using your phone and trying to make the most of that horrible 1 hour bus journey to the place where you are heading. And it's the same with news. Like I sometimes, I don't spend a lot of time in public transport, thank God, but sometimes there's no way around, and I like to check a couple of Israeli newspapers, and I often have a look at Times of Israel and Jerusalem Post, and none of them are by any means Netanyahu related publications. They are fairly moderated. They are between center and center right. But just because the word Israel is there, I never know what I can face, and I sometimes check my surroundings to see if it's the right thing to do, or I should wait, 5-10 minutes, because I might get into trouble. And I would never expect that, say, 5-10 years back.
Yeah, it's well, and it makes me think in terms of having talked a little bit about dog ownership and those statistics and how it might align with the cultures, is even just the whole music consumption issue anyway, because music and what is forbidden and what is acceptable. And granted, there are all kinds of faith-based programs where things are restricted, where you might have a church in America that won't permit anything other than the simplest piano because anything else is considered bad or something like that. So levels exist on in all sorts of ways, but if you have cultures where even the music, and aside from any particular song where that is not supposed to be consumed or enjoyed, it has to give pause and it needs to be acknowledged. And I don't understand the protests when what we're talking about is trying to neutralize. So one of the things that I wonder is, are we on the cusp of seeing a progressive, and of course, progressive is a loaded word these days, but I'm going to use it in a more traditional sense, meaning some forward movement of the global Muslim community that will say, okay, we are going to accept coexistence, and it is going to let us permit some more of this. We see a lot of this merging happen when people come to, for instance, our country to live. They'll get pets. They will listen to music. They'll start to consume like an American. But in the other nations, such as Dubai, or where they are now doing the big golfing and they're doing huge horse racing, and they're wanting to lure Western consumption and Western dollars over there. So could there be a more official factioning off of the global Muslim community? And if so, what are they going to call themselves? And how far will they take it? Because one of the aspects of it is about coexistence. It is not about conquest anymore then.
Yeah, which is a word that it's not part of their dictionary, coexistence. They are not ready to inhabit the same place as us. It's not only us. Even if you are a Muslim individual, if you don't follow the strict guidelines of radical Islam, then you are considered an enemy. You are not welcome in the community anymore. That's how they operate. And it's not something new. People might say, oh, this is just a Muslim Brotherhood or Ayatollahs. It doesn't work like that. Islam, it's more than a religion. It's an ideology that is not prepared to live nearby someone that is not willing to accept what they want to dictate. It works like that, okay? It has its merits because sometimes, as I just said, we need to use force. We need to be strong, and there's nothing wrong about it. But they are not prepared for differences. They just don't have the space or the tolerance to accept other points of view. That's how they have been, and I don't think it's going to change any soon. There are some signs of hope. Like I know not everyone agrees with me, but I think to some extent I can see the merits of societies like UAE and the way that the Saudis are heading their society at the moment. They are integrating some Western elements. They are allowing us to enjoy ourselves as long as we don't mess up with the fabric of their societies. And I think that's fair. Because I want to make sure that some standards are kept. We can be part of the wider population, but we won't be troublemakers. Like when I was in UAE, for instance, every time I went out drinking, I made sure I took a cab back home. And I think it's okay. I think it's a normal ask. The country is prepared for that. They don't want people to walk around and just do stupid things. So I think I don't find that like censorship. It's just a way to keep society to some standards. So you can do you can be you, but don't provoke don't create any sort of trauma to the others. I think that's okay.
Yeah, that invokes the golden rule, doesn't it? And I'm going to say that what you said could pretty much verbatim be flipped over to us as a home nation, which is a melting pot to begin with, which has now had this influx of foreigners, the people that came through in the years when the borders were collapsed, which were in actuality notable major percentages of some of the smaller nations' entire populations. Is that yes, we have a fabric in our lives too. We have our laws and we have our ways of doing things. And so it should be perfectly fine to say that we expect the same from anyone who comes here too, rather than saying that we have to permit radical cultural takeovers. I think in America, it is not quite the point where what Europe and especially England is seeing. They are in so much trouble because you cannot now speak against something like it. You are literally being arrested and taken to jail if you stand in opposition to some of these cultural issues or where violence and crime happens. And I'm going to broaden that spectrum. If I need to have my daughter or my son take driving lessons and get hours of driving practice to have a permit to drive a passenger vehicle and be on the road and be safe with others, then we really need to be able to have a right to have anybody driving a semi on our highways have the requisite training and permissions to be able to be out in a vehicle of that size so that we can all be safe as well. I am absolutely blown away by the fact that people without training who are not able to even read our signs are behind the wheels of semi-tractor trailers and thereby putting us all, not to mention themselves, in great danger. That makes no sense. There's no logic to it whatsoever. And there is no cultural generosity by saying it's okay. That does not compute with me.
Yeah, 100%. I was just thinking here, like typically things start in America and then we mimic after a year or two. But when it comes to this demographic disaster, we are way ahead of the Americans for our sins. Why is that, in your opinion? Do you think it's because we are closer to, well, geographically speaking, we are closer to Africa and the Middle East, or you are just a way bigger territory as a nation, or it's just about the leaders?
Yeah, and again, I come at all of this from cultural, sociological standpoint because that is my area. But I am going to say, and especially if I'm tracking news, I love to subscribe to the online British press because, for one thing, I like perspectives that come from overseas. It's a little more nuanced, but also what happens in the westernized nations overseas. They are harbingers for what is coming to the US. And it is geographic. We first have the ocean that must be crossed, and then we have this large continent that must be crossed. Now, pre-technology, there were huge divides in cultural and events as they would make their way across the land. It's much shorter now because technology facilitates contact at every level, whether we're talking about flying quickly from one location to the next or clicking and communicating in split-second timing. We're all right there. We're all same page, but there still are differences, whether we're going to go from the coasts of our continent down inward to the interstates. There is a lag time, I'm going to say a social lag time that exists. And that lag time also exists between the westernized European nations, which are they've just been at it all much longer. And I think it's important for us to pay attention to what's going on overseas, because I think it does indeed help predict what is in store for us. And whether it's inevitable or not, that remains to be seen. But being open about it and being able to talk about it and being able to openly talk about the problems will be how we can avoid it. And my hope then therefore remains that we don't over stigmatize being honest and diverse in thought and speech, so that we can keep these discussions open and can observe and share about it and maybe avoid some of the issues that these other nations are absolutely suffering from.
Yeah, I'm just going back to the poll because I will close it in 5 or 10 minutes. there is still a tie at the top. So we are still not sure if the whole YMCA party will blow next week or next month. So guys, please let us know if you believe it's a matter of days or it will only be April or later down the road, because I want to see what will be the winner here. Like within the states, like in terms of this woke mind virus, which I know it is not exactly the topic, but I would like to bring it to the conversation. What are the areas where this is more of an issue, and what are the areas where you are very much protected?
Yeah, so I would encourage, for starters, everybody look up Alice in Wonderland method, Alice in Wonderland protocol, whatever you want to call it. What exceeds science fiction, horror, whatever genre you want to call it, it exists in terms of persuasive, mind control, social manipulation. If you think that you can think it up, it's been thought up and it's been done, and we are all subjected to it. And I think that, so wokeism has had its rise as a term in very, very recent past. And I have been observing it and participating in it and pushing back against it from day one. I think that being awake and being, for instance, willing to not agree has become more difficult. One thing I want to point out, there is a thriving organization here in the US. It is called the WalkAway organization. Back in, let's see, it was January of 2021. The WalkAway group was a Facebook group. It was 500,000 strong. And we know in retrospect now that Biden administration did partner up or coerce, whatever you want to call it, with Zuckerberg and company. And they literally shut that platform down when it was an organization of 500,000 individuals. That organization always held such appeal for me because it was really about diversity of thought in tandem with diversity of person. Because we different people will think differently because our experiences will be different. And it's okay if we remain different, because somewhere in all of that exchange is where you can really find truth with a capital T. And so we are still dealing with it. And I have pushed back on it and gotten in trouble for it, so to speak. It's relative. It's not like my grandfather in Ukraine who was executed and thrown in a mass grave for standing up against the status quo that Stalin was wanting to impose on everyone. But it is real. In our consumer culture, we then start to circle back into what I call social cred, that sort of thing, ostracization. Texting, emails makes it only too easy to be nasty on the side, where a person can then present nicely in public. So it's pretty complicated. It's fascinating. It's amusing. And it just, the main lesson being that hopefully everybody can take, and of course, I think it's a life lesson anyway, is that, again, circling back to the microcosm of family and those closest to you and affecting the people that you love and that you truly care about, that actually in the end matters most of all. Because if you can set aside the noise and stay focused on who you are and what you should be to those to whom it really matters, those concentric circles will take care of themselves. And of course, right now, wokeism and the virtue platforming, that reverses all of it. It's about reaching out into this huge picture and wanting to make huge statements. But where does it circle back into then the one-on-one discourse thing? So we've kind of reversed that ripple effect.
Yeah, and the outcome is terrible. Yeah. I often see that most of the people who fall into wokeism, they don't have a massive degree of self-awareness. So they just believe that everything can be said and that equals freedom. And it's not that simple. Like, okay, everything can be said, but some stuff is based on facts, and some other is just fantasy. And there's no problem with being creative or allowing yourself to divagate about things. There is beauty on that. Like both of us are writers and we use imagination in our stories, and there is a lot of merit and beauty on using those skills. But there are situations where we need to stick to facts and to to reality. It's absolutely necessary. You cannot navigate without references or common understandings. It's absolutely crucial for us to stick as a society and to look after one another in community. And they don't like that. They think that it's just a form of oppression. It's a form of limiting ourselves as individuals. And perhaps sometimes it is, but it's, as I said, it's absolutely needed. Otherwise, we cannot exist and communicate. And what they do is just destroying. They have this whole Marxist idea of destroying the past because the past is considered an enemy of the future. And
Right.
again, it is something that we cannot buy. We did a lot of nasty stuff. Say the Inquisition or some interaction between nations was absolutely ugly, but we did so many fantastic things to not only to ourselves, like some nations, like the British or the Portuguese or the Italian. We left infrastructure that we still avail in the current day and age. Like where I live, where I'm from in Portugal, there is a lot of infrastructure that it was developed back in the Roman times. So we owe a lot to the Italians. Like the whole idea of urban organization, that's something that the Italians started, and then we all developed, to the best of our knowledge. So yes, we were oppressed. Yes, there was violence and blood, but at the same time, their knowledge was absorbed, and we all grew because we were able to have the presence of other cultures, and it had a price, but that's how things were in the past. We cannot read, say, the 12th century or the 16th century with the 21st century perspective. It's just wrong. We are not the same individuals. Even before COVID and now, we are not the same society. We don't demand from the others the same attention. And now that we have technology, for instance, let's say you send a WhatsApp message, people are not always ready to respond because maybe it's not just you sending a message. There are 5 or 10 people messaging them on WhatsApp, but maybe in other platforms. So that's perfectly acceptable. Back then, think of that. You would have a phone or a telephone at home, and if someone would ring you, you don't know who is this, so you pick up the phone and you'll find out who is calling you. You can hang up, but it's up to you. So we change, and that's just how humanity exists.
Yeah, we are the bridge generations, tail end boomers, the earlier Gen Xers. These are critically important generations in terms of awareness and carrying forth the legacy as best as we can for awareness for the younger generations that will not know the absence of technology or then the nanotechnology that is now this new step or this new stage that we're entering into, is that this is the horse and buggy versus the automobile era. We're bridging that. And so being aware of it and sharing the understanding and also the willingness to learn and adapt as we go along. Those are some critical masses for a lot of people in terms of communication and the pushback against AI. I, as a creative contributor, it's a very interesting aspect, the AI implementation and disclosure and all of that. Yes, those are entire conversations unto themselves.
Yeah. So before you go, I'm going to ask you one question on AI. It's not directly related to the topic, but now that you put it on the table, because I wanted to discuss that and I'm not going to let it go. So you think AI for us creators,
Yes.
is it an ally of the truth, or it's something on the way?
Well, truth being the word truth with a capital T, truth is such a heavy loaded word. Yeah. I'm going to say, can we humans stay on top of it and stay ahead of it? Will AI get to the point where, because right now it is regurgitating what we flawed, brilliant, agenda-driven humans feed it. Will AI then, as far as sentience goes, and goodness knows movies have been made, books have been written, speculating on the outcome of that, maybe AI will develop its own bullshit-o-meter and go, no, human, this is silliness. This is not working. Will it remain a tool? It is a fabulous tool for those who could use it. It is highly contentious. Also, when people want to start to invoke the climate and the water and all of that, but in order to get to these next steps, it's here to stay. It must be tapped. And I'm using that word as the double meaning as with the water too, in order to bring us to those next levels. So it's not going to go away. So can we somehow be the masters of it as it progresses? That insofar as can AI then be used to detect AI, and can it filter itself out? Can it maybe find the truth in spite of what the humans might be trying to wrangle out of AI? We know perfectly well, it's very well known that different AI models have different leanings, and it's based on who's programming them and where it is. I mean, there are factories in China where they are inputting information to build AI. Okay, let's write a science fiction story about coerciveness at that level. So I think that right now disclosure is one of the key things. I think that AOC once said that if all of our time is freed up, we're all going to be poets and things. I don't think that's true. I don't think mankind is evolved enough to set aside opportunities for trouble and abuses of any given situation. We're not there yet. So I think right now it's important that we humans can keep ourselves occupied and busy, because AI will continue to take things over. And we humans will need to find ways to stay busy and employed, especially as capitalists. We'll have to figure out ways that we can stay useful. And I think that AI is probably going to be limited insofar as there will be some physical things that humans will have to manifest just because that's who we are. But ultimately, it's I think it's going to be the next step that we go. Let's just see where sci-fi has done a good job predicting how far it's going to go, and that remains to be seen. I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetime, though, but it'll be interesting to observe it someday.
Right, let's close the poll, and unfortunately there is still a tie at the top. I'm not going to ask AI. I'll leave this decision for us, Kim. So when we'll have a full party, full YMCA all over Iran, is it next week, next month, next summer, or just Christmas time? At the moment, people are leaning for next week and next month, and we don't seem to have a winner here. Are you this optimistic, or to be a lengthy process?
We had a very recent lesson when we had the very, very sad withdrawal from Afghanistan and Iraq. And my oldest son was a Marine. He fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And where did those years and years of war lead us? Nowhere. I think that lesson has to be recent enough. And the administration is talking openly about that and the lessons that were learned from that let this be a recent enough, tough lesson learned that we will not make that mistake again and waste time and money and lives for nothing. Now, it is a little bit contingent, though, on that big question that I asked myself that I mentioned earlier. Is there some progressive evolution in the making for these other cultures to separate out from the hardline thing where coexistence can start to supplant conquest?
Right. So I think I'm going to put an end to this conversation. I could be here with you another hour just for the interest of time. It's getting late here. I know not for you, but for here it's getting late. So I want to thank you for joining this conversation to bring your perspective as a creative writer based in America. I think you add a lot of value. So thank you very much for the insights. I think they were very beneficial for all of us who were present in this call. Want to add some last words, please?
Yeah, I just thank you for letting me be a part of your extended community. I think that what we are doing, civil discourse, is the golden ticket to take us forward.
Right. So just before I let you go, I just want to share an initiative of mine, which I think is related to what we discussed today. So for the viewers and for you, Kim, why not? I'm organizing a group tour in June to visit Israel. So if you guys want to see the Holy Land with your own eyes and not through the headlines of the media, here's an invite. We'll meet as a group in the Middle East between the 15th and the 22nd of June. We have a licensed guide helping us understand the history, the architecture, and the vibe. So we will be traveling from central Israel, meaning Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, up to the north and visit Galilee. We'll spend a day in Safed, which is very known for the Kabbalistic elements, and also Nazareth and the Dead Sea on the way. This is something that it's already open. So if you guys want to register your interest, all you need to do is fill this form, and I will get back to you with additional details. There's an FAQ file here that you can go through. I think it's pretty straightforward, but if you guys have questions, comments, I'm happy to answer. And what I will do, I will put the link in the description for those who are keen to visit Israel with their own eyes. I think there's a lot of benefit from seeing a country with your own pair of eyes, especially Israel, that is so much misrepresented by the media in the current day and age. So again, thank you very much, Kimann. Thank you very much for those who join us. I can see a couple of nice comments here for us. And I will see you, by the way, let's announce this as well. And I will see you in person in the States in June. I haven't said that.
Yeah, America tour, and we will then host a podcast, and that will be a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, that will be actually right before I travel to the States. So that will be another 2 intensive weeks. Yeah, I need to get used to this much of fun. Right, so have a good evening, guys, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Thanks so much for watching. Click here for more episodes, subscribe here to catch the next ones, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section.